What would you do if your life changed in a blink of an eye? If everything you ever dreamt of suddenly disappeared? Let me tell you what I did when my life was turned upside down. I open my eyes. I'm confused. I have a burning pain in my chest and in my right shoulder. I'm feeling dizzy. I look up. I'm in a hospital room. White walls, flickering blue light. By the door, a nurse and a doctor is speaking in rapid Mandarin. The nurse notices I'm awake and hurries towards me to place a phone to my ear. Emilie, what's happening? It's my dad's voice. It's full of panic. Dad, I think I fall off a horse. That morning I had intended to go horse riding, like I did every morning since I arrived in China 6 weeks earlier. I must have had a bad fall. But I've been riding since I was 6 years old. It didn't make sense. This felt different. I look down at my arms and all I see is blood. I can't feel my legs. I start to panic. My memory flashes in and out. I remember trees blowing past me. Suddenly it hits me. No, Dad. I've been in a car accident. And everything goes black. The next time I woke up, a nurse is rolling a big machine into the room. She places it next to my bed, pulls out my shirt and places 2 handles on my chest. I start to panic. What is she doing? Wait, I've seen this in Grey's Anatomy. Is she about to give me an electric shock? I start to scream. I'm awake! My voice is weak, but I keep screaming. The doctor rushes into the room. Emilie, are you okay? I'm awake. What is she doing? The doctor assures me that the nurse is just checking my kidney and my liver, as it sustained a lot of internal bleedings. I relax a bit, but I still have no idea what happened. I faintly remember I was out driving with my boss, Mr. Lee, and 2 other people I met for the first time that morning to check out some buildings for a new horse riding center. I remember feeling uncomfortable with how fast we were going on the narrow country road. Where's Mr. Lee? I ask. The doctor tells me not to worry about it. I get a bad feeling, but exhaustion wins over curiosity, and I pass out. I wake up the next morning as I'm getting rolled into an elevator with a mirrored ceiling. This is when I realize how serious the accident had been. Seeing myself in that glass ceiling is something I'll never forget. My whole face is black, blue, stitches and wounds everywhere. I have wires attached to my body. I start to cry. Pain flares up and I pass out again. The next time I woke up, my mom was there. I thought at first I was hallucinating. My mom was home in Denmark. I still remember the look on her face when she saw me. I remember the fear in her eyes. I remember the way she was sitting by my side, holding my hand. After a while, I asked a question that no one was answering. Where is Mr. Lee? My mom told me that Mr. Lee had passed away on the way to the hospital, and that one of the other passengers had died instantly. I couldn't breathe. I was completely broken. Later, I was told that we had swerved to avoid a motorcycle. Our car flipped, rolled down a hill, and landed upside down in a lake. It took 3 more weeks before I was cleared to fly back to Denmark. But little did I know at the time that this was when the real recovery began, the mental recovery. When we're 19, we possess a certain feeling of invincibility. I had just finished high school with good grades and I was about to pursue my biggest dream, to become a professional horse rider. Horses had always been part of my life, and since I was 6 years old, I've been competing in show jumping. I knew I was a good horse rider. My confidence was sky high, and at times I was reckless. No horse was too wild and no jump was too high. I knew exactly what I wanted and how I was going to get it. And after my graduation, I got offered that professional horse riding job in China. And combining horse riding and international travel seemed like a dream. So at 19 years old, I traveled alone to Dalian in northern China. The accident changed everything. That childlike feeling of being invincible was gone, and fear started to take over. I was afraid all the time. I was afraid to go anywhere. I was afraid when my parents left the house. I was afraid that another accident would happen. I remember sitting on the couch, waiting for my mom to call me to tell me she made it safe to work. I remember not being able to think about anything else than I needed my family to be close and safe. I was constantly restless. At the same time, I wanted things to go back to normal, to be as they were before the accident. I tried to get back into horse riding as soon as I was physically capable. I even started competing again. But things had changed. I had changed. The first competition I did was a local championship just 4 months after the accident. It didn't go well. For the first time in my life, I didn't care. It suddenly didn't feel important anymore. It took a long time for me to admit to myself that something I've been dreaming about since I was 6 years old didn't feel right anymore. Because who was I without this dream? Then about 8 months after the accident, I was out meeting a friend. While waiting for her, I walked past a travel agency. I stopped, stood there for a while looking at the posters in the window, dreaming about traveling. It was scary to think about. But suddenly I also remember a thought I had when I woke up in that hospital bed in China. I remember thinking to myself, if I'm ever getting out of this bed, I want to learn how to surf. I was scared to leave again, but something suddenly felt even more terrifying. The thought of letting fear win and never get to follow my dream of traveling. So before I knew it, I had walked out of there with a one-way ticket to Australia and 4 nights booked into a hostel in Sydney. I went home to tell my parents I wanted to sell the horses and go to Australia. Needless to say, they thought I finally cracked. But then they supported my new dream. So just 10 months after the accident, there I stood, in the airport again, about to travel to the other side of the world. I gave my parents a hug and walked to the gate, thinking to myself, Emily, what on earth are you doing? I cried the whole trip. It was a 32-hour journey. Still feel sorry for the poor guy sitting next to me. But Australia became a life-changing experience. I got to be me. I had the chance to be a 20-year-old girl again, and I had the chance to reinvent myself. And my time in Australia taught me that sometimes the things we are most afraid of starting ends up being the most beautiful chapters of our lives. And most importantly, it was where I found a new passion in surfing and made friendships for life. Turns out I had absolutely no natural talent for surfing. I was probably the worst one in the group doing my first surf lesson. On the first day, I didn't even manage to stand up. But I was determined. I felt like I put everything on the line for this. The next day, I finally managed to stand up for a few seconds in the ankle-high waves. But that moment was everything. I felt a rush. I felt joy. I was free. I'd found my mojo again. The next day, I went out and I bought my own wetsuit and a surfboard. And from that day, I never looked back. I never doubted my decision to give up on horse riding. I had found my new passion. Learning to surf healed me in a way that no amount of physical therapy or medicine could ever do. And the years went by, and I continued to travel, study, and surf. I even made it to the Danish national surf team, and I represented my country at the European and the World Championships. I now live on the west coast of Portugal, where I get to surf every day. And I created a life that I once could only dream about. And I find my courage in so many ways I never thought possible. You might be wondering why I'm telling you all of this. I'm telling you this because we're faced so many times in life with challenges and situations that brings up so much fear that this can render us helpless and stuck. Fear is a big one, but it's something we can truly learn to work with. My experience taught me to stop, look at my life, really dig deep to figure out if I was on the right path for me. To do this, I had to look fear in the eyes. I had to grab it, lean into it, and learn to use it as a tool to discover what I really want. Looking back at the last 10 years, I realized how I use fear as a tool to reach my goals and dreams. And I believe you can do this too. Because we don't need a near-death experience before we start taking control of our own lives. So here are my 5 ways to work with fear. 1. Acknowledge your fear. Moving to Australia, I could not run away from my fears. I had to admit I was terrified. Terrified of being alone. But I was even more terrified of never traveling again. So now I'm asking you, what do you really want to do, but it terrifies you? 2, practice getting out of your comfort zone. We all tend to take the easy way out, but I learned that facing my fears is when we really grow. After the accident, I felt like I had to do everything in my power to control my environment. But when you learn to surf, you have to do the exact opposite. Let the environment control you. You have to flow with the water. I learned that progress is an everyday thing, getting a bit closer to your dream every day by pushing your comfort zone with small steps. Big achievements come from small steps accumulated over time, like setting a date in your calendar to do the first small action towards your dream. 3, allow yourself to fail. I believe that the fear of failure is one of the factors that holds most of us back from living and pursuing our dream. But one thing that surfing taught me is that it's not about how many times we fall. It's about getting up and trying again. This is what my surfing mostly looked like for the first 7 years. Or this, clearly no natural talent. But then, I finally got it, and it brought me some of the most memorable moments of my life, like representing my country at the World Championships. And today, 11 years after my first surfing lesson, I'm grateful that I never gave up, because I learned to look at failure as a learning opportunity. You'll not succeed every time, but if you don't play the game, you'll never win. So start trying, and know that every time you fail, you're one step closer to success. 4, cultivate your tribe. I found a tribe of like-minded people who are interested in personal growth. We meet up every few months to talk about our fears, goals, achievements, and failures. I encourage you to share your fears, goals, and dreams with a mentor, a group of friends, or your family. Having someone to share this with will help you realize what is holding you back, keep you accountable, and celebrate your progress. 5, don't wait till you're perfectly ready. I had to have an almost fatal car accident in order to be faced with my fears and find the courage to explore new and uncharted waters. But you don't have to. You don't need a big traumatic event to take the first small step. As an athlete, I always seen the goal first, signed up for it, and only afterwards worried about what I had to do to get there. The journey starts with the destination. Call me reckless, but if I thought too much about how I would leave home again, be on my own again, feel lonely and afraid again, I would never have gone to Australia. I would never have started surfing, and I would definitely not be standing here today. So say yes, leap into the unknown, then you'll have to be ready, because you won't have a choice. Of all my fears after the accident, the fear of giving up on one dream and building up another was one of the hardest. And it took a near-death experience to make me consider. Maybe I was actually done with horses long before the accident, but I didn't dare to give it up. I was too set on, this is who I am, this is my dream. But dreams can change, and that's okay. So don't let fear stop you from going after your dream, or from changing your dream altogether. Thank you.